Now we are ready to go, joined by Mizzou head coach Eli Drinkwitz. We'll start with an opening statement from coach and then open up to questions. So,
yeah, proud of the way our guys finished. It's always great to conclude spring ball. Felt like we did exactly what we set out to do, to accomplish, which is to see individual player development, improving our fundamentals and techniques, which I think we did, lay a foundation of our schemes, offense, defense, and special teams, and then build that camaraderie amongst our team. On a side note, you always want to stay healthy. This is the healthiest spring ball I've ever been associated with. We only lost one person to an injury that kept them out any extended length of time, and nothing that will keep anybody out for the season. So very impressed with the way our guys practiced. We still had a very physical spring, but was able to stay healthy. And excited about the direction of this football team. I think we're in a great position to go enjoy a spring break and come back and really utilize the next 4 months to train our bodies, turn them over to our athletic performance staff, and really make a big jump and close the gap on our competition. And so excited about that and proud of the way our team finished. With that, I'll open it up for questions.
Gabe Jarman, Power Mizzou started off.
Yeah, Eli, outside of the guys obviously working out and getting better, what is your roadmap for the next few months for closing that gap? I mean, what's kind of on your plate, and how do you go about the next few months till camp starts?
Well, we have a specific April. The NCAA allowed us to add 2 hours of walkthroughs. So football school will be the month of April, which is going to be an important time for us to continue to build on the foundation of our schemes on both sides of the football, while not having to sacrifice time in the weight room. So that's a great addition by the NCAA. And then obviously we've got to continue to recruit. We can't go physically out on the road, but we've got to virtually go on the road and make sure we continue to assess, evaluate film and make those connections. And then, again, not being on the road will allow us to utilize the time in the office to formulate game plans on teams and really start developing, those first 4 opponent game plans and even some guys down the future that are important contests for us, maybe, trophy type games and stuff like that, making sure we have a pretty good indication of what their teams do and have extra preparation for them.
Natalie Jones, KMIZ.
Hey, Coach, you've been mentioning player development, but do you feel like, is there anything specific that you've taken away from this spring camp from your team that you've learned that maybe you didn't get to see over the season?
Again, each and every player has specific things that we want them to see, but I do think the camaraderie and the team chemistry is really starting to develop on this football team. Yesterday we had a pretty cool team activity and just seeing the relationships, whether it's offense, defense, guys interacting outside of what their normal positions were, rooting for each other, having a good time together, sharing a meal together outside of just their normal time. I see them in the cafeteria when they're eating breakfast, sitting at breakfast and lunch with people of the opposite position and all that. So, I really think that's what's standing out to me as much as anything. It's not that I didn't see it in the fall. It was just really hard because of COVID protocols and all the different restrictions that we had. I'm not saying we don't still have those. We do. It's just now I think we're more adaptable to them. And we found that new normal and how to coexist with them and still maintain and develop relationships and interactions.
Dave Matter, St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Eli, at the beginning of spring, you talked about with Connor just developing the deep passing game, just more aggressive and deep ball accuracy. How did you see that develop, not just with him, but the whole passing game over this last month?
Yeah, I think there's still some definitely areas of improvement. I think in the spring game, that deep ball down the sideline to Toski was a pretty good view of us really being able to improve on that throw. We missed that throw in the Florida game right before half. So seeing some of that, obviously, the challenge for us now is for those guys on their own, since we can't be out there with them with the football, for Connor to really continue to bang that chemistry with those wide receivers. But I think we're off to a good start. I think that we will see fruits of that labor, but there's still a long 4-month process for that to continue to develop.
Ben Arnett, KMU.
Eli, a lot of teams will close spring camp on the spring game, but you had an entire week after that. How beneficial was it to be able to get a look at a lot of things in the spring game and then have another full week of practice to look at things?
Yeah, I think it's always important for, spring game is such a important evaluation tool, and sometimes it's left undone because you get the spring game and then whether you go on spring break or whatever, you kind of just put it to bed and move on. We were able to watch it, coach it, correct it. And then we spent the last 2 days, this week really on problem schemes that we're not seeing from each other. So, our defense runs a 4-down front. So we spent the last 2 days working on an odd front defense or a bear defense so that we can bank those reps for upcoming opponents and reinstalled our run game versus those. Our defense looked at some tempo stuff and some different run schemes that we don't run, and making sure they were fitting those right. So I think it was really beneficial, and just again, everybody utilizes spring different ways. It's just a way that I think is beneficial for our program.
Emily Leiker, Missouri.
Hey, Coach, with goal of individual player development this spring, were there any players in specifically that you felt really embodied that goal and grew a lot from?
Yeah, Emily, I think, one guy that really stood out to me in that, there's a lot. I mean, Akil Byers coming back and moving to a 3 technique position and working on his hand placement and eyes in his gap, I thought was really good. I thought J.C. Carlisle's moving from corner to a free safety position and working on his transitions in and out of breaks and widening his vision so they can see the whole field. I think about Zeke was really focusing on using his inside hand on his outside zone scheme to really provide himself with extra power. Connor was talking about short area movements within the pocket and ball security, having 3 fumbles, 2 lost and 3 more on the ground. There were several times in the pocket, thought he did a really nice job of just slow, short area movements, but being able to push up and deliver the football. Tyler Beatty was working on trying to become a more complete player, has upped his weight to about 197 pounds from what he was in the season last year, which was around 182. And so, those are just some of those things right off the top of my head. Isaiah McGuire was working on trying to develop a pass rush move so he can, as a 5 technique, rushing the quarterback. Devin Nicholson was working on playing more physical and downhill so he could diagnose runs and be a more physical linebacker. Those are the things that just roll out. And I think each one of those guys knew it and attacked it every day. And obviously we saw, I think we saw that development.
Greg Palermo.
I'm wondering if you're encouraging players to stay in Columbia or if you've given them any spring break guidance as far as COVID is concerned.
I have not given them any spring break guidance as far as COVID concerns, other than be cognizant that there is still COVID and, practice safe social distancing, 6 feet. We'll test when everybody gets back. And I think when everybody gets back, we'll actually be eligible for the vaccine. So excited, I don't know if that's just employees or if that's all the way to the students yet. I'd have to reread the email I got, but I think hopefully in the middle of April, we'll be able to, provide vaccine opportunities for our players.
Dave DeArmond.
Eli, I think this is the first time since 2018 that you've gone into a summer, with the same job you had the summer before in the same place. How much more does that help you be able to be settled, prepared, and I don't want to say make the summer easier, but maybe have kind of a plan to attack it?
Well, I think it should normally, but because of the inability to plan out the summer because of the uncertainty of recruiting calendars and all that kind of stuff, I think we're all still kind of just in limbo on what the next 4 months will look like. But I do like being in the same place. I do like being able to plan a vacation and figuring all that out. And man, if anybody's got any free boat rentals or anything down at Lake of the Ozarks, don't be afraid to pass it along to their favorite football coach, okay? Or jet skis or whatever. I'm looking at you, Margaritaville.
Ben Arnett.
how have you liked the way Tyler Beatty has handled spring camp? It's been kind of an opportunity for him to level up with Larry gone. What have you seen from him?
Yeah, I think I've seen a level of intensity out of Tyler that I probably hadn't seen before, and maybe a level of just concentration and understanding it's his opportunity. And I've been really impressed by the way he's tried to attack and add the weight, and then been able to. There was one time he was all the way up to about 203 pounds, and then during that week just felt like he was too heavy, and so he's shed about 5 of those, and really trying to figure out, okay, if it's 197, 195, is that the area that I need to be at? And, Tyler's a really good runner, and he's different than Larry. And I think our schemes will adjust a little bit based on what he's better at than trying to force him into what Larry's role is. So, I think he's done a really nice job, and I think he's really done a pretty good job of leading that group and letting those other guys kind of match his intensity. I've been impressed with the way Elijah Young's really responded to.
Dave?
Eli, on the defensive side, with all those new voices on the staff, what's been your impression of just how that transition is going with the new coordinator, but the new position coaches, and just a lot of new leadership on that side?
I think it's an opportunity to grow. And I think that team and all those guys kind of embraced it from that. And I think they've, change is hard on everybody, but it's an opportunity whether you embrace it or don't. And they've been withstanding change for about 18 months now. And so I think they saw how the offense responded to change last year and what was positive about it and what was hard. And now they're getting to experience it themselves. I also think they're seeing some benefits to it. I think, the defense had a really nice spring. There's always times when there's things that are busts and things that got to get fixed, but I think it allowed them to do some things that they've all been excited to do, specifically in the amount of turnovers they were able to force, and, maybe some one gap responsibilities they were able to utilize and maybe use more of their God-given abilities in the defensive line lining up in a 4-down front. So I think there was more positives than negative. There's always a few opportunities for setbacks, but for the most part, those guys have really attacked it with a great attitude. And when somebody walks in with 15 years of NFL coordinating experience and or head coaching experience and tells you, and has different NFL players be able to speak about it, there's a certain level of credibility that college kids are easily able to buy into.
Eric Blum, Columbia Tribune.
Hey, I wanted to ask you about the guys that took the extra year and how they adjusted to the spring. I know that some of them didn't think they'd be in Columbia now, but how did the guys like a Kiki or a Mike Maietti, kind of, I guess, improve this spring?
Well, I think Kiki definitely used the opportunity to develop the chemistry with Connor that maybe we didn't have last year because of just the transition period and COVID and the way fall camp was. And I think there's definitely a connection there that's going to be advantageous for us. Mike Maietti, we were very cognizant of making sure, that guy has played a lot of football. And so we wanted just to see him develop, individually, but not put him in harm's way. And so, we reduced the number of reps, but made sure that the reps were specific for what he needed to improve at. And, we challenged those guys that came back. This was a new year and a new team. And so just like everybody else, there's always going to be competition, and don't assume because you're coming back that you're gracing us with your presence. It's an opportunity for you to compete for a job. And I think people like Akil Byers and Chris Turner have really embodied that. They've really attacked this new opportunity for them to create value for themselves and their own abilities. And I think the same for Kiki and Mike Maietti and Grant Guinness and so on.
And we'll finish up with a few questions from Tony Reagan. Go ahead, Tony.
Thanks. I'm writing a profile on Connor for Mizzou Alumni Magazine. And I'd like to start by asking just kind of what was it that you saw in Connor back when you first recruited him for NC State? And how does what you saw back then compare to what you see now this spring?
There's 5 requirements that we look for in a quarterback, and whether I've been at NC State, Appalachian State, Boise State, Arkansas State, it's always been toughness, preparation, decision-making, accuracy, and leadership. And I think Connor's always demonstrated those abilities, whether it was at his high school, at Archbishop Alter, I think is the name of it. When I went there and was able to watch him throw and visit with his coaches and counselors, that they commented highly about those tangible things that he had. And I think when I got here, I think I was able to see his competitive spirit at a different level, from an interaction in a competitive setting. And I think I've also been able to see the dude's got a low heart rate. Nothing really rattles him. And I think that's one of his strengths, is that he's able to maintain poise in all kinds of situations. And that's going to be something that continues to be his asset for him.
That kind of calm, collective leadership is something his teammates speak to as well. Where do you think that comes from with him?
I don't know. It's probably because he was, he's got great parents and he's got 2 older sisters. So I'm sure that, being raised by 2 older sisters may be able to keep him calm, cool, and collected. I don't know. But whatever it was, his parents did a nice job with it. I've heard stories, though, that when he plays basketball, he's a lot more animated than he is when he plays football. So I don't know, maybe it's the helmet.
I've heard it's that way when he's playing Madden too. Kind of working through that injury, at the end of that freshman year, working his way through the uncertainty heading into last year, then working his way to the front. Just the day-to-day drive that it takes to make it through that adversity. Did you ever see when you got here, did you ever see the frustration in him, or did he kind of put that behind him?
Again, he's such a low heart rate guy that he's really the same guy every day. And I never really noticed any changes in who he was. But in fall camp, he talked about how that was really hard on him and how he had to really approach it one day at a time and not really get too upset and try to have micro goals in order to get through it. And just been impressed with the way he's attacked it. And like I said, I didn't do a very good job of checking on him and making sure he was doing good. But he got through it, and he never once complained about anything, in fall camp or walkthroughs or whatever we were doing. Never complained if he was the 3 or the 1 or the 4. He just maximized his opportunity, and when his moment came, he was ready.
In talking to him now, he really does have the workaday kind of approach to it as well. He's not dwelling on the laurels of last year, but he seems to be focused on what he needs to do this year and moving forward. What are some of those things, do you think, both from a technical standpoint and from a leadership standpoint?
Well, from a technical standpoint, we've talked about ball security in the pocket. We've talked about deep ball accuracy. We've talked about red zone opportunities. I think from a leadership standpoint, more, I don't necessarily know that he needs to lead from the front, but just more of a demonstrative capabilities and take charge, just take charge. It's whenever you're a returning starter at quarterback at your football team, whether that makes you uncomfortable or not, it is what it is. You are going to be the guy that's out front, and you're going to set the tone and drive performance. And so we just need him to continue to embrace that role, master the offense, and keep being who he is as a really good football player. And if he just incrementally grows, he'll make some huge strides that help our football team.
Last question. Just can you come up, to put you on the spot like this, but can you come up with an anecdote that kind of illustrates that leadership as it's evolved, either like last season or even during spring here?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Just kind of a scene or a moment when you kind of saw him with the teammates. Maybe he didn't even know you were looking.
Yeah, no, that's easy. That was the Arkansas final drive. Just said, let's go win the game. And then I always step out of the huddle, and he said, let's go win the game. And then he went down there, and 4 passes later, we won the game. So, it's just kind of who he is. He wasn't rattled. He was just like, all right, let's go do it. And kind of jogs out there, bopping and beeping with his head, bouncing. And you're like, all right, I guess this dude's going to go out there and win the game for us.
That's great. Thanks, Coach. I really appreciate it.
As Mitchell Ford want to ask anything, I noticed he showed up about 20 minutes late.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Sorry about that.
Crud, Mitchell, as we wake you up from your nap.
No, I'm just got busy working away over here.
Working away. Yeah. Bet you're working away, working on a Miller Lite, 3:30 in the afternoon. Spring's over, man. There's only 14 of these. Crud. All right, Dave.
All right, thank you, everyone.